Hello and welcome to another fantastic episode of the Business Growth Accelerator. Thank you once again for tuning in. I have another fantastic guest, Miss Lisa Schaefer, who is the Christian drama queen. She has a very own podcast called Chronicles of the Christian Drama Queen. You can find it on all major podcasting sites. Lisa, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm doing well. I'm excited to be here. It's nice to meet you.
Absolutely. So I appreciate you taking the time to throw your hat in the ring to come on the Business Growth Accelerator. I believe we connected briefly in Christian Entrepreneur Group over on Facebook. I think that's the
hmm
last place that I shared the opportunity to join, and you jumped right in. So again, welcome to the show.
Thank you. We're glad to be here.
If you could, can you give me a brief cliff notes of who you are and what you do for the audience?
Okay, so you obviously don't know me well, or you wouldn't ask me to do anything briefly. That just does not happen very, but I'll do my best. I will do my best. I am finding that other people respect time. So it's probably a good idea for me to do the same. So, yeah, I'm Lisa Schaefer. I live in a small town in the center of Kansas. I am a mother and I'm a grandmother. Been married to the same man for 39 years. I have always been an entrepreneur. It's what my mother calls serial entrepreneur. I'm kind of addicted to the idea of owning a business. And so I've been doing that pretty much nonstop since my first child was born. And it started with, the regular mom kinds of Tupperware, Mary Kay kinds of businesses. And all good stuff, great businesses, and loved those things. Didn't find something that I was passionate about though until just recently, and that actually was a ministry. And God called me to come home from work and start writing. And I started writing, and out of that came 2 Bible studies and coaching business and things that I wasn't really expecting or planning to do, including the podcasting and sharing some redemption stories with people. So it's been a fascinating journey because it really wasn't what I was planning to do, but it's pretty much what I do. I also own a janitorial company. We've had it for 32 years, and it pays the bills when the podcasting, Bible studying, coaching doesn't, So I have been building that business for 30 years as well. So we have found that as long as people don't like to clean their toilets, we have some job security. So
Yeah, for sure. I'm one of those people. I don't like to clean the toilet, especially with 2 little boys running around.
yeah, no, there's nobody likes it. It doesn't matter who's running around. So we've been doing that for 32 years, my husband and I, and just recently expanded. And I'm almost 60 years old, and we decided to expand that business to give me more time at home to build the ministry that I'm working in. So that's kind of me in as brief as I can go. What basically brought me here to the point where I'm sharing stories all the time is that when the Lord called me to be home, He said, I want you to write things. And I didn't know what to write. I homeschooled 25 years. I had experiences with drug abuse and alcohol. We have dealt with addiction in our family for many, many, many years. I had some infertility issues. I was trying to figure out what I was supposed to write about. And there were all these kind of jack of all trades things. And basically, the message was, I want you to tell other people where you've seen me the biggest. And that was in learning to forgive. So now we have 2 Bible studies that are built on the forgiveness of things that are pretty unforgivable.
That's absolutely amazing. You're doing a lot of things there to have a solid business that you're running for 30 plus years in the janitorial space, which is definitely a bread and butter type business, a quote unquote boring business. If this was a Cody Sanchez podcast, but to then step out and then use your faith to build this ministry up is absolutely amazing. So how has your faith influenced your approach to building this new brand and growing podcast?
I love that question. So, as somebody who's been in multi-level marketing and network marketing spaces for over 30 years, I was constantly feeling, and I just don't know any other way to put this, icky. There was a constant drive to make money and not necessarily meet needs. And even when I found a company that I just madly love all their products, love what they do, there was still such a drive to make money and depend on the company for your future. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you find a good, strong, debt-free company, man, that's great. I support that. But it became an idol. It was easily an idol to me to try and just worry about and think about making money.
Mm.
And so when I came home and I felt like God was calling me to do something else, I want you to write about me. I kept finding these coaching things that were all about still making money, even though they were Christian coaching things. And I still just didn't feel right. I didn't feel like that's what I was being called to do. I felt like I should just focus on purpose. And so I found a coaching program called Purpose Beyond Profit, and he walked me through that. And man, the entire time I walked through it, we talked about purpose. We didn't talk about strategies for money. We didn't talk about how we were going to get leads. We didn't do any of that. We just focused on loving God and loving people. And that's all I've done. And man, my business has exploded. I talked to 12 people yesterday that want to talk to me about either partnering up in the ministry to others, or they really want me to walk them and be a freedom facilitator for them so I can walk them through this process of forgiving. My faith has played a huge role. And even when I wasn't focusing on the right things, it was obvious I was supposed to be. And so now we're kind of in that space where you do finally get to a place when you're answering a calling, or when you think you're answering a calling, you get to a place where the fear of doing this big thing, or what feels like it might be a big thing, the fear of doing that is nothing compared to the fear of not being able to do it, like not having the freedom to do it. When I was faced with not having enough money to be able to just stay home and work on the books or the ministry, there was more of an anguish there, not a fear, like a desperation, but there was like an anguish about not being able to fulfill that calling for a little while the funds were being built and while we were figuring out ways to make it work. So I think that's the difference between following your faith into your business and just doing things faithfully. Does that make sense?
Makes 100% sense. I can be honest and open with you here. The concept of faith, it doesn't elude me, but I do struggle in, I wouldn't say having it, but I guess giving all the way into it. I always had a chip on the old shoulder of, being a little bit rebellious and not being, not like being told what to do and things like that.
And who
And
is? Who doesn't?
right.
Who doesn't feel that way? Yeah. So one of the things that I write about in my books even is about the fact that, and you touched on it and then it hit me and then it went kind of right out my head. So I kind of lost it. But one of the things that I talk about there is trusting God in spaces that look like he's not there, right? Because we have an idea and a concept about where he is and what he's like when he is there. It should be blatantly obvious. But if you look in scripture with all of those stories, there were many, many times when people were in a pit and God was there, and people were in front of lions and God was there. And so it's tough to grapple with when you struggle with rebellion, but I will just give you this word of advice. He will do whatever it takes. And because that's his desire, is for us to have that fellowship with him and have that greater faith. But sometimes it is about walking on hot coals sometimes to get to that place, to get to the end of it. So I respect you for saying it, because a lot of people won't admit it. Nobody wants to admit it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would say I'm a Christian. I go to church on Sundays. I read the Bible. I was baptized twice, actually. Once, Southern Baptist, and the other time I actually went through a baptismal program and things like that. So, I mean, I get and understand the concepts. It's just, I don't know. It's just, there are just key times where I think too scientifically about it and too, I don't know, we're having the blind faith. But, I mean, I know it's there. If I know, just lean into it, it'll be good. So what are some of the key lessons though that you've learned, from your journey that other people that are essentially following the same path could apply to themselves or perhaps a business they're trying to grow?
Hmm. Well, I would say this: you have to start with finding the need. It doesn't matter what your business is, and it doesn't even matter if you're a Christian business owner. You have to find the need. You have to establish where the needs are, because if you're not meeting needs, then who wants you, right? You got to find your market based on need. That's what market research is all about. People make millions of dollars every year trying to find out what people need. So you keep your ears open and you listen for what the needs are, right? And then you try and find out who's meeting those needs, because chances are, if it's something that's meant for you to do, there's a good chance those needs are not being met well. And there's a glitch in that system I'll tell you a story recently. My community has been struggling for years. If you look at the Facebook group for the women in our town, it's been constant. Do you know a daycare provider? I need a daycare provider. I want to go back to work, but I don't have a daycare provider. It was a constant need. Finally, somebody at the extension office got a wild hair and said, maybe we need to facilitate a daycare service here and figure out how to get a daycare. So grant processing started happening and conversations and fundraising and all of that. And bam, we had, a couple of $1 million to start building a daycare. But somebody had to pay attention. It was not a service that people were offering in enough. We didn't have enough daycares, so nobody was really offering a big facility for it. We didn't have enough little facilities for it, and we definitely had a need. It extended to the point that we couldn't hire new teachers because they didn't have a place to take their kids when they went to work at schools, or we didn't have a place for them to live. And why didn't we have a place for them to live? Well, new housing wasn't being built because people weren't moving here because there was no daycare for their kids. It really extended out. So you have to just keep your mind open to what people's needs are and see if those needs are not really being met. And man, you'll get a niche that fast. I snapped my fingers. Nobody can hear that, but I did. So that's crucial as well. And the other part is to be patient. And that is so hard. It's just the whole idea of waiting is based on just complete and total anguish. It's just based on anguish because a lot of times what we're having to do is watch for a very long time and build concepts and marketing strategies and getting other people involved and looking for investors, and all of that stuff can take a lot of time. And for me, because so much of what I'm doing is kind of built on somebody else's steps. So for example, I partner up with other ministries to see if what I have to offer is something of value for them. But in doing that, there's red tape. You got to wait for them to contact the woman in charge of the ministry that's in charge of that thing. And then that event goes on and somebody's in charge of that. There's like this red tape involved.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just have to be patient. You have to realize that everybody's got the same 24 hours and, however many thousands of seconds that is, we've all got that same amount of time. And sometimes you're not the first in line, and you just have to find a way to be patient, and you just plug along, man. That steady plodding brings prosperity is just all about continuing to press on forward. I think the last thing I would say, I picked four things. I don't even know how that happened. It's like I started an outline and here we are. I would say the fourth thing is to have no fear. Have no fear. I looked at where I was before I started the business I'm working right now, the ministry I'm building right now. If I had given way to all the fears and the doubts and the lacking confidence that was there in my head and didn't just jump and do it, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be talking to you. I wouldn't have put myself out there and said, hey, I've got a message and I want to share it. I wouldn't have met so many amazing people just in the last few months since I wrote those two studies. I've met some amazing people that God's doing some incredible things in, and I'm having deep, fantastic, eternal conversations, things that are important. I wouldn't have had any of that if I had just said, somebody else needs to do that. Somebody else should tell that story. Somebody else needs to meet that need. Just jump. I think you just don't be afraid, because here's my thinking on this. You're probably not going to be any worse off if you jump. You might get a few bumps and bruises. Steve Harvey tells that great analogy about jumping, and it's just stuck with me. If nobody's seen it, look him up. He does this great story about sometimes you just got to jump, and you get bumped and bruised on the way, and you might think that it's not happening well, and you've jumped for no reason. But by the time you get to the bottom, man, the view is completely different. So it's worth that experience. Take the risk. Do the jumping. Pray first. I'm going to get in trouble if I don't say that. Pray first.
Yes.
But jump. But jump. Life's meant to be an adventure. It's not meant to be, a sit out. We don't sit out in life. It's supposed to be an adventure. Don't be afraid. Have no fear.
Perfect advice there. And I've taken some leaps of faith here and there, and I would say I haven't failed too far or failed too hard, so to speak, on any of them. I always like to think of failing forward than anything, right?
And that's absolutely true. I would say everything, and I used to teach this in my wellness business. If you're not making an effort, there's where failure is, because doing something and thinking you failed at it is really just moving forward. That's just part of the journey. That's not a failure. As long as you're pressing forward, you're not failing. And so failing forward is an absolutely constant concept in business building.
Absolutely. And so I took a look at some of the episodes that you've put out on your podcast. You've put out more than 20, which is better than probably 20% of people out there. 35. I know
35.
35, which is a lot.
Yeah,
You're
one every week since I started podcasting, man. I'm pretty consistent. It's crazy.
nice. Yeah, you're essentially in the top 1% of podcasts out there because not many people that start get that far.
Yeah.
So how do you navigate the balance between, sharing deeply personal stories and keeping your content relevant to your audience?
Well, I'll tell you, first of all, I had to decide what stories were really important. And here's the thing. There's always somebody that needs to hear what your story is. Somebody needs to hear it. And so I had to decide a really long time ago, if I was spending this much time and energy to podcast or write or teach or coach or speak at events, whatever it was, if I was spending this much time, would I do it if there were just one person impacted? And I had to admit that I would, because that's a life that's changed and that's important. And so I don't spend a lot of time wondering if I'm supposed to keep going. I just keep going. I just keep going. And the stories that I tell, some of them are pretty painful. I do talk about, because the concept of the studies is built on abandonment and abuse. Discarded is a daughter's journey to reclaim freedom and forgive the father who left her behind. And that is about my life as a discarded daughter. And the second one is called A Victim's Guide to Forgiving the Unforgivable, a biblical journey to break the bondage of bitterness. So the only way I could have written that was to have had something unforgivable happen to me and find a way to forgive. So I do share some deep and painful things, not in graphic detail, but in just in a way that makes sure people understand that the pain is real. It's just that the grace God gives to get through it is bigger than what the pain is. And so I do share some deep stuff, and I don't know that everybody's comfortable with doing that in their own life. I just am, and I think it goes way back there. One of the stories in my study talks about when I was diagnosed with illness, and I just had to decide if I could be healed of that illness, would I tell other people about it, even if it was a shameful, disgraceful thing to admit? And I did. I just said yes, I would do that, and so I do. I share it because the idea of not keeping my promise makes a difference for me, and I don't want to not I don't promise. I just figure if I'm willing to look foolish or willing to look broken and beaten up, maybe somebody else is willing to ask me how I did it. And that's the bigger thing.
Yeah, for sure. And that appears to be, wholesomely authentic in yourself, in your journey in the business. So how do you think that is affecting the overall growth of the business and the podcast?
Well, so let's don't make the assumption that I have a mass following. I do not have massive hordes of people following me. However, those that are pretty loyal, and they do share me with other people. So, I mean, I got all excited when I hit 103 followers on YouTube. I was like, oh my gosh, it's 100 people. That's fantastic.
Nice.
But I do think that a great deal has to do with the fact that people trust what I'm telling them, because I'm not afraid to share with them things that are dark and dirty. I'm not afraid to tell them that story about the harlot in scripture, and she was brought to Jesus in adultery. Yeah, that's kind of me. And so I'm able to explain how it feels to be that person, how it feels to know that God sees that, and that's what you're showing him is your filthy, disgusting behavior, and what he feels about you in response. And that's where people stay, because it's not my message it's not the part about me that's so fascinating. it's the truth that God would see me the way he sees me despite of me being in that condition. And that's the part that I think people want to keep hearing, is that there's a solution to your problem, or there's a healing for your pain. So that's I'm just facilitating the story that's already there, the information that's already there. And part of that is just being very, very genuine. And people are attracted to that. Everything we see is phony. Have you noticed now that you can't trust a reel that's on the computer? You can't trust a video that's on the news. Everything can be CGI'd. I mean, you just can't trust anything.
No,
And
you really can't. We're
yeah,
opening up a can of worms here, and
yeah. We don't have that much time.
no, we have plenty of time. We can go as long as absolutely as long as you want.
So we would solve all the problems of the world, just
Yeah,
a few of the
it's
problems of the
we can go as long as you want. I know it's just slated for the hour or whatever, things like that, but there is no time limit on the Business Growth Accelerator at all.
But
So,
I do think people are desiring some genuine, authentic conversations, and without having to have, everything I do on YouTube and, on the podcast. So it's obvious that I'm in front of people. I mean, I put a camera on and a microphone on. So I am doing it for people. I am doing it to be seen, obviously.
mhm.
But the goal is to be just real authentic. And I do think people are looking for that. And they're looking for real intimacy in their relationships with other people. I noticed that a great deal. I talk all day to women that are very active in their church and yet don't feel like they have authentic fellowship with the women that are there or people that are there. So that's an indictment on us. And so I kind of owe it to them, to the people I talk to every day, to just be real. And I think that they need that. They want to know that that's possible, and to live without shame, and to live without fear and grief and the constant reminder of all your mistakes. I think that's what they're looking for. And so I think authenticity does play a great part in the way that my following is being built, because I don't think it's me that's
Mhm.
doing that.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely great points there. And you mentioned something that kind of I wouldn't say pull me off script here, but when it comes to being authentic in the videos and the things like that are out there, I know it's absolutely insane what's going on with
Mm-hmm.
the types of videos, being produced, what's being shown on TikTok, Instagram, all those platforms there with AI generation. I think I saw the other day of the ship with a giant fish on it that looked like an absolute sea monster. And if you weren't looking close enough, it's something that could possibly exist, and creators are stitching it in there just for the views. So I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
there is too much authenticity out there for many of these online entrepreneurs, and it's good to actually speak with somebody who is authentic in their real self and just want to share that message.
I'll tell you, I think that the more computer generated life we live, the more I call it showing the front porch, where everybody on Facebook is just showing the very best day. We're sharing the very best event day, the best wedding pictures, the best pictures of our kids. Everybody's that has a pretty front porch, has a really nice front porch, probably has skeletons in the closet
Mm-hmm.
inside. And so I think we live in a culture that either wants to be shocked for entertainment, want to be scared for entertainment, or want to be lied to for entertainment. And the more we have the ability to do that from a tech savvy position, from all, having CGI and AI and all of that, the more that we have that, I think the more we will start to hunger and thirst for things that are real. It's kind of like when you're on a steady diet of sweet tarts. Eventually, you want a carrot, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
carrot would be real. But might take a long time before you're sick of the sweet tarts. By the way, I love sweet tarts. I'm not bad mouthing sweet tarts. Don't misunderstand me. Tell the candy company I actually like those little candies, but it's not a steady diet of something that's real. And we so whether it's socially, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, we need some authenticity. We need some honesty. And sometimes it's painful honesty, but it's true. And see that, there's light to be had in truth. So we eventually start to hunger for it. And I think that is a little bit of a part of why people tune in to hear what I'm saying and tell my stories, because I just don't make stuff up. I just don't lie. I could probably have fabricated much, much bigger stories from my life or much, much bigger stories in my Bible studies. But the truth is just enough. And I
Mhm.
think that that's true about any good product, about any good business. The truth has to be enough.
Absolutely. The truth will set you free, right? That's the,
Absolutely.
that's the saying there. So how are
That's
you,
the keynote right there.
how are you handling any challenges currently in, growing the podcast, and how's the faith kind of holding everything together for you?
Wow. Well, like I said earlier, you have to be patient. I knew when I started the podcast that we were not going to go from 0 listeners to 100,000 listeners. I knew I wasn't going to have that. So I began to just really be grateful for the one at a time. When I got the notice that said, you have published 25 podcasts from Buzzsprout, or I got the notice that said, you've had 100 downloads or whatever it was. I'm celebrating every little single solitary thing. Everything is big for me, right? I just am celebrating all of that. The frustration comes just from the time that it
Mhm.
takes, and you have to be patient, but you have to work. I mean, I communicate and share the podcast in every opportunity that I can. It's in all of my emails for those that join my email list. It's shared. In fact, when I do a guest spot for someone else, I make sure I share their podcast on my podcast, and make sure that I tag them so that their followers know that I'm going to be having their program. So you just have to do the work anyway. You have to be patient and trust that, the right people are going to come to you at the right time. I find it interesting that I will spend some time reaching out, and what I typically do is I send out a message to someone that seems like we're in similar ministry space, and I'll just say, it looks to me like we have some overlap. Maybe I can offer some support to your listeners or to your followers. Would you like to visit about that? And so the plan was, of course, to visit with someone that might be a mission partner with me. But without fail, about 99% of the time so far, those people that find out what I'm doing with my ministry and with the Bible study and facilitating freedom in forgiveness, without fail, they've said to me, I think I want you to send me that study. So it's not really important to me to have numbers near as much as it is to have impact. And I think that as long as I trust God to do that, the people that need to go through the stories and need to be that have that facilitation of freedom and forgiveness, that those will be the people that come. And like I said earlier, if I just impact one, and that was the intent all along, then that has to be okay. Now, that's not going to make a whole lot of money, but I have to focus on the purpose for me, more so than I do the profit, and just assume that the profit will come. And that's kind of where I'm at now. But I'm almost 60. I did a lot of other businesses before I got here.
Mhm.
So if I can help people get here sooner, great. Get here sooner and lose some of that frustration. But for many years, doing many different businesses, focusing on profit was not rewarding for me. I did make some money. I've made over $125,000 working hardly at all with one of my businesses, and it was great. And I still share what they do, but that's not where the passion is anymore. And it's too easily an idol for me. So I just stick in my lane. I'm gonna stay in my lane,
There you go.
Brandon.
There you go. So you mentioned some key things there, when it comes to growing the podcast. You mentioned email marketing, a little bit of social media marketing, things like that. So how are you currently trying to build your email list? Because that's essentially the foundation of any business.
Well, I will tell you this: people do not care how much you know unless they know how much you care. And so I have a landing page that I send out. It's freedom.christiandramaqueen.com. And from that landing page, they get to know a little bit about what I'm offering. And I will send them something that's valuable for free. And that is key, because people love free resources. And if it's a free resource that genuinely has value, they might want to hear what else you have to say. And so that's exactly how I've been building my email list. Again, it's just doing the activities, spending the activities, and sharing that website and letting people know, this is a place where you can get a free resource. You'll know a little bit about me and what I offer, and you'll start to get an email from me. and you can always unsubscribe, right? And I'm not a big emailer. I had one gal. Okay, so I'm going to put this out there just as a warning, just so you will know. So don't send an email every single day
Why
because
not?
because nothing makes me want to not open your email than to see that you have emailed me every single solitary day. Um, and there's a difference between generating interest in an event. Obviously, then this is your reminder. We're 2 days away, we're 1 day away, or whatever. I get that, totally get that. But sending me several emails day after day after day after day, I will click unsubscribe fast because it's not effective. It's darn close to nobody's going to agree with me on this. I know that, and that's okay. You don't have to. It's a little bit like email bullying. It's like if I didn't respond, you're going to tell me again I should have responded. And if I don't respond to that, you're going to tell me again I should have responded. And it does get to a place where you're just like, this is making me feel icky. I'm feeling a little bit, and so I have unsubscribed to people that have me on their email list and they just shoot me something every single solitary day. Now, exceptions to the rule are devotional email, because I know a lot of people do that. They'll send out verse of the day kind of things. But I know that when I sign up, right? But when I sign up with somebody who's offering some sort of coaching material or just an event, a one-time event, and I participate in that, and then they send me an email every day, day after day after day after day, I usually opt out. So, and I'm probably missing out on something good because I'm feeling bullied, right, with an email.
Yeah.
But you send me something every 3 or 4 days, I get you. You're wanting to stay in contact. You're offering me a short email, not a long one, short email. It's got some information in it that's good for me, that helps me have a better day or gives me an idea or spurs me on and encourages. That's a whole lot different. And sending me that every couple, 3 days, I'm totally in with that. I email every 3 days for 18 days, and then I drop it to once a week so that I'm still out here. You didn't respond during those first 16 days, but you might
Mhm.
later. So I just don't, I guess I just respond. I think I market the way that I respond to marketing. So
Yeah, a lot of people do that. A lot of people buy it or sell how they buy it as well. So it does make total sense. I'm in a little bit of a different camp when it comes to email marketing. I think daily quote unquote Seinfeld emails aren't terrible. that
I
that's
love that.
that's the nomenclature, I guess, that I
Yeah.
learned when it comes from um,
You're a 90s guy.
yeah, or when it comes to the marketing deal. Your Seinfeld email is I wouldn't say it's an email about nothing. It's a way to at least tell a story and kind of continue to nurture them along. But I totally understand where you're coming from as far as the initial pitch offer email. Like if you're emailing every day of, of
A pitch.
a pitch, yes, then that's going to get you to unsubscribe. 5 days
Right.
at the
I
most,
actually,
and then hit them with the daily Seinfeld emails, which again are emails about nothing, but still moves them along the journey.
and I think a lot of people too, because I will get emails and open the email just for the sake of opening it. Sometimes it's because, oh yeah, I was going to connect with them. There was a plan to connect with them. So sometimes it's good to have the reminder, but I do stop reminding after a certain length of time. And then I just go to, here's a little more of my story. There's a little more of what's happening with me. You plugged in because you wanted to know. So I'm just reminding you, here's my calendar, and that way people can log in for an assessment, a free discovery call. But I think you do market probably to the people that are like you. I went through one coaching session with, I can't remember the name of this group, big coaching program, but they teach you to design your avatar,
Mhm.
which is basically you. I mean, you're going to be reaching out to people that are like you, and in my case, that was definitely true because I was going to start reaching out to people that had experienced similar things to what I had experienced as either a child or as a woman, discarded by her father. So I designed that person, and my marketing is kind of built the same way. My email marketing is built the same way. I'm kind of reaching out to people that are a lot like me. And then, if we get to a place where they're not responding and it's been months, I probably get to a place where I just send them, letting you know I'm still here. Probably won't hear from me for a while, but that's okay. Don't forget I'm around or whatever. But my hope is that they're plugging into everything, not just the emails or not just the calendar, but they're going to my website and they're reading the blog, and which is taken from transcripts in my podcasts. And then they're going to the podcast, or maybe they're following me in my group for people who are looking to be forgiven. So I've got tentacles everywhere. And so the goal is to find the thing that makes them go, okay, well, I can watch this group every day, but I am not opening emails all the time. Or maybe I'll listen to the podcast every week, but I'm not getting on Facebook anymore to get in a group. So I think that multicast, for lack of a better word, multicast approach is probably a good idea, because everybody is different and you're trying to get your message out to the people that might only like that one thing.
Sure. Yeah. Being omnipresent is key for a number of businesses, as long as the message is succinct. Just starting out, though, I've come to find to go all in on one until it hits where it needs to go, and then kind of spread out from
Mm-hmm.
there. There's no wrong way to skin a cat, right? So you shouldn't be skinning cats, but unless you're in Springfield, but we
I
won't
think
go
there's
there.
I think there's a wrong way if you don't want to get messy. If you don't want to get messy, there's a wrong way. But I do think you kind of sometimes, podcasting is the thing that just, I'm an old radio person. I
Mhm.
spent 10 years in radio. And so the podcasting is like, right, that's in my blood. I mean, you stick me in front of a microphone, I can talk all day. We can talk all day about this if you want to. I don't have a problem with that. So that's where I'm going to kind of keep going. Hey, go listen to the podcast, because that's where I'm at and I'm having a good time, right?
Yep.
So I think it's okay to pick that thing that just, fuels your fire. I like that idea, right?
Yeah. Well, at least have
But
everything drive to the one thing.
everything drive to the one thing. So everything does drive to my calendar and my email list. The podcast drives there to the Bible study. So everything drives to the Bible study. So because it's included everywhere. So yeah, yeah. So
So in the beginning, you mentioned a little bit about, you did a couple coaching programs and such. So how's the role of mentorship play in your journey, and how have you leveraged that mentorship to grow?
well, I had taken when I knew I was coming home to write, I knew that was something I did not know how to do. And so I'm sorry, the cats are going crazy outside my window. I don't know if you can hear that or not. It sounds like kids crying, but it's cats. We live in the country, so they just, they rule. So I took a few coaching programs, but when I first came home and decided I was going to write, I didn't know how to write. And so I found a book by Leslie Leland Fields called Your Story Matters. And at the time, she was offering like a 6-week walk through my book with me program. And it was very affordable. I don't know what it costs now, but I know it was very affordable at the time. I think it was $299 for a walk through the entire book, and it taught you how to build a setting and how to follow a timeline and decide if you want to make a memoir or a novel and all of that. And that was all stuff. I was not even good at creative writing. I was good at taking your order at Arby's. That's what I was good at. If I was going to write, I was going to write down your order. That was it. I was not a writer. I'm a talker. And so I took that course, and I think that was really instrumental in me being able to write the studies, and to, because originally I started with a memoir, and I found myself going, okay, you're going to have to explain how God worked through this, and you're not going to be able to do that without scripture. So I said, okay, well, then I'll leave a place for people to journal and read the scripture and figure that out with me. And so that's how the studies got born. But when I started coaching, I saw some people whose names I recognized. I had seen them doing YouTube videos and they were successful. They had 5,000 followers, or they had a Facebook page and there were 79 followers on their page or whatever. And so I began to try and connect with those. And I just got more and more discouraged because, number one, nobody was telling me they were really benefiting from the coaching, because they didn't really let us talk to each other very often. It was usually a one-on-one that we got from somebody else who was being hired to do the program. And so we didn't get to talk to each other very much and go, hey, how much success are you experiencing? And that was not, because there's not real. And the groups that were allowed were, you had to audition to be in. You had to prove that you had something worth being coachable with. So it was pretty discouraging for a while. I spent a few $1,000s. Don't tell my husband. I spent a little bit of money and it wasn't until I found a guy who purposely said, we're going to focus on your purpose. And he step by step with Purpose Beyond Profit. If nobody's looked him up, now this everybody's got to look up Jeremy Reyes with a purposebeyondprofit.com. He and I don't get paid for that. So he actually said, let's start with the mission. Let's start with what it is that you're offering as far as, the work you're going to be doing. Let's focus on need. And then we'll step by step walk through things like how to develop that email funnel and how to do the Facebook group. And we did all that, but it took several weeks, and being able to focus on purpose was just what I needed. I don't know that everybody is that way. I'd like to think, especially as a Christian, most businesses are going to see the need to focus on purpose, the purpose of their mission, their calling, their work. But not everybody does. Not everybody does. And I don't expect it. I mean, that's between them and their coaches, whoever's helping them get their businesses off the ground. Some people just have an expertise that they're really great at. Like, I spoke to a gal today. She helps people monetize their podcasts. And I was very curious about that. But if we had talked just about money, it wouldn't have been good. But we talked for an hour and a half about God. So it was really great to know that we had that like-mindedness going, right? Mm-hmm. So I think you have to know yourself and what kind of coaching is going to be best for you. One of the areas that I really struggle with, and I'm even struggling with it after a year of going through Jeremy's program, calendar blocking and sticking to my schedule. I will, if a fire pops up, I'm going to put it out. Mm-hmm. And it might drag me away from my calendar, and it might mean I've skipped something, but I have figured out there's a way to move things around. So those higher priority things can still be done that many hours a week that you need to do them. You just might have to move them instead of just skipping them altogether. So that's new. That's new for me because I am not big on calendars. I love a good planner. I made a big plan. I made a planner. There's one on Amazon that I built. But sticking to a plan, because I got grandkids and kids, and that's a whole nother podcast, brother. That's another book. Anyway, but I do have a tendency to stop, put out the fire. And so if you're like that, I highly encourage you to develop some rhythms in your life. Use that block calendar, prioritize, and move things around. Don't just skip them. Move them so that you can still do them, right? So, but coaching, man, that's a how it makes you feel kind of thing. I used one coach, didn't make me feel good. Used another, and then found one that I felt like that was an answer to prayer for me. So,
like I say, I've gone through some courses myself, and my wife knows how much money I've spent on software.
You told her?
I don't think I'd still be married if I did. Well, I mean, she knows I spend money for the stuff, but she knows that it is the investment into it. She knows I go on a big trip every year for the conferences. So, I mean, it's kind of my, I don't know, it's kind of my way, I guess, that I've invited her her to the world numerous times. She's just no interest.
And do you feel like when you go, you grow?
A little bit. This will be the last time I'm going, because I told myself that if I didn't hit this one milestone, by the time I hit that conference, I'm not going to go again until I hit that. Then it turns out this is the last time they're having the conference. So, it's kind of like one of those things.
Wow.
So I'm like, it's the fourth year of going. I figured it's nothing's really changing for the conference itself. So I'm like, I'm graduating out of that step to then focus on moving up the ladder, I guess, in their sales funnel. Because my goal is to hit the inner circle, right. Of the mastermind and then grow from there.
And is that based on income? Like, you don't get into that until you've got a certain amount of income?
Yeah.
Or a certain amount of influence?
Yeah. So it's $1 million. I need to make $1 million.
Okay.
To even be considered.
Okay. Well, I don't like that. But if it fuels your spirit, you go for it.
Well, it's not so much of making or needing to have made the $1 million. I mean, it's a $25,000 or maybe even $50,000 mastermind group, right? But you got to pay to play, and a lot of these types of groups. Is it great? No. I mean, are there free masterminds out there? Sure, but I don't know. It's the drive of already being in the ecosystem for going 5 or 6 years now. That it's like I'm not seeing it. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing it a little bit. If I look at my bank account, there is growth there. but it's not enough to get the brass ring going around the
So
merry-go-round.
who? So are other people seeing it? I mean, are there other people
That's
making it into the? Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. There's a ton of people. I mean, um, so I know it can be done. I'm just
Right.
trying to figure out uh, my processes and just getting off my butt to do it. Maybe I need to switch up who I'm trying to help. I'm trying to go
Right.
after the blue collar businesses that I know they need the
Yeah.
uh, the help, right? And just
Right.
like you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, you got to see the need that's out there. I know they need it. They just don't know they need it.
They don't know they need it. So really, so where the rubber meets the road is in convincing them or showing them or exposing their need. So yeah, I think what I would, for me, people don't know they need what I have to offer until I expose to them. I do an assessment with people. It's called, it's called, how can you know if you're a Christian drama queen? And so, are you a Christian drama queen? And it includes things like, when I have an argument, I've got to have resolution. I have to have a resolution. When I've got to think of some of these questions, I should have opened it up so it was in front of me. I have to, I feel like I have to get up and move on because I get restless. So, like when we moved, this is how I knew I was had a problem. We moved within the first 30 years of our marriage, about 16 times. And
That's a
so
lot.
what that meant was we were moving like every other year on average. I mean, if you average it out, sometimes we were here 4 years, sometimes we were here 6 months. The truth of the matter was, I would get restless and I would say, oh, that shiny thing over there looks better than the shiny thing I'm living in. So let's go to that shiny thing. And then we'd move. And of course, my husband would, God love him, he would just pack up and we'd go, right? Okay, as long as I can drive to work, I'm okay with it. As long as we can get to work, I was okay with it. But I developed this assessment because a lot of people don't think they have a problem, right? So I developed this little freebie assessment. I'll send it to you and you can answer the questions. Are you a Christian drama queen? Do you have problems with rage, like for no reason? Do you feel like you enable other people's bad behavior because you're afraid they won't love you if you don't? Do you have to have the last word? And and like I said, one of my big ones was always my kids, I drove them nuts. Every time we get into something when they were teenagers, I wanted us to have a moment of resolution. Tell me you love me, I love you, give me a hug, and we'll be okay. They were still mad. So it wasn't gonna happen that way. And so I developed this assessment, and maybe it's time for some sort of assessment that shows people they actually have a need, because if you do those assessments and you come up with, 69 points out of 80, there's a good chance you're a Christian drama queen.
Mhm.
So maybe it's about letting people see that they have a need. Maybe you don't realize you have the need.
For sure. They have it. Maybe I'm just like putting the right message out there to show them that, hey, you need to take this assessment, the assessment that I have,
Yeah.
that will actually show you what's wrong in the business and why you're spending so much money on getting a lead or why you can't even get one.
Right. Right.
Um, so as you've probably come to know that the niche that you're in with your podcast, there's probably a good bit of them, right? So how are you, differentiating yourself to make yourself stand out? And how does your unique faith and perspective help you?
Well, I think we already touched on this a little bit. My authenticity in my podcast is I think it's shocking sometimes. And I think people know when they leave, they're going to get a message. They're going to hear something that will inspire or help or encourage. I also, when I ask other people to share for me, to be an extension, because if you found value in what I had to offer, chances are someone else has the same need that you did. Share this podcast with them. If it was a message that touched you or made a difference for you. I'm not into fluffy podcasts. I don't know. I mean, I know people love Joe Rogan. I get it.
Mhm.
I love Joe Rogan. But if it's fluff and it's some celebrity and they're talking fluff, I'm not listening. But when he starts talking about stuff that's significant, I'll pay attention. Even if I don't agree with him all the time, at least the conversation is something that's deep and it's causes me to think, right? And so I'm kind of that. I hope that I'm offering that same kind of thing, even in my short little 15 minutes worth of podcast, that I'm offering people something of value and that they're going to walk away going, man, I'm thoughtful about that, or that made me think, or made me feel something. Maybe it gave me, I have a new podcast I'm working on right now that talks about how impossible it is to forgive someone that offended someone you love, but someone you love seems to be able to forgive them. So the message of that is like, no wonder I'm so mad because they didn't offend me. They offended somebody else and I'm just mad about it. And so it's about, we think we're angry and unforgiving out of love. And the truth of the matter is we don't really have the grace to forgive if the offense was not toward us. So it's a difficult concept. So what I'm trying to do in my 15 minutes is say, think about this the next time you're angry at someone for hurting someone you love. Once you take that unforgiveness on, it's hard to get rid of because they were given grace to forgive. They were hurt. You were probably not given the same amount of grace to forgive. So anyway, but I think it's about offering value in everything that I do I have a couple of podcasts that I deleted. I've got one up there right now that I think I'm just going to get rid of because it was just I was trying to appeal to some sense of entertainment, some comedy, it was all a conversation about how much I love techie things. And I do love techie things. My kids know Christmas is easy for mom because she likes anything she can plug into a wall or she can Bluetooth. She wants anything she can plug into a wall or Bluetooth. And so I did a podcast about that and it just was kind of hollow. It was really kind of shallow for me. So I deleted it. I decided, yeah, and had several downloads, but I felt like I was trying to pander. And so I got rid of it. And so I think what I'm trying to do is not waste anybody's time. If they're coming for 15 minutes, I'm not taking that for granted. That's 15 minutes that they're dedicating to spend time listening to me. So I'm not gonna waste their time, or at least I hope not. I'm gonna try not to waste their time. Hopefully I'm not gonna make them mad, but that could happen too.
It could, depending on the subjects that
The
are
subject, yeah.
the talking about. When it comes to faith, Christianity, and those types of topics, they are very
And pain.
polarizing. Yeah.
You talk about pain and where God was when you were in pain. That's tough. That's why I do a facilitation program that takes several weeks because it's not something you can chew on and get taken care of in a day. It's just not. And I know that. And so small chunks. That's the reason why my podcast is only 15 minutes because that's probably about, even if I speak when I've spoken, I'm like 30 minutes because if we speak too long, we're going to try to glaze over something that's just too hard to get through. So that's how I think I keep attracting people to the podcast, just sharing in small bites, and it's got to be valuable.
So we just had a pretty major political event for the past couple of days. How do you think this new dynamic change is going to affect small business for one, and then especially the faith-based style businesses? Do you think it's going to have any impact at all? What's going to happen in the next 4 years?
Well, I will tell you personally, I don't think that the political climate should change what faith-based businesses are doing to an extent because you hope what you're doing God's honoring anyway, and you're doing it out of a passion or a mission or a design that God's already got you in. However, I do know that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and a sound mind. And much of what I see, not just in business, but in Christian circles in general, is a great deal of fear in the past. So just like I don't want to be in that fearful camp, I also don't want to put all of my eggs in the bucket of the new administration. I think that you have to use some common sense. Humans are humans. They're flawed. We have a flawed design. Humans are we're a flawed bunch. And so you you I would like to think that the dynamics of things that are going to be happening, I'd like to think that it'd be good things. Donald Trump has always been pro small business in his policies from the stage. So small businesses in general, I'd like to think that they're going to see some benefit to less taxation and more freedoms and the tax code shrinking and all of those kinds of things. Right now, I'm just trying to digest the idea of being an S corp. I can't figure all of that out. I went from being a sole proprietorship to an S corp LLC, and I just went, what? Wait, I don't understand. And why didn't somebody tell me sooner I wouldn't have to pay these quarterly self-employment taxes if I was an S corp? You don't have to do that when you're an S corp.
Well, then I need to switch it up because I'll be honest, I'll pay that $400 or $500 penalty. I'll have to deal with that stuff on the LLC. I figure it's worth the same amount of money as paying a bookkeeper to do it anyway. So
Yeah,
it's
I had it. Somebody had to walk me through that whole idea. I had absolutely no idea that there was any difference, right? But I'd like to think that things will be different and new. And I know that when I see people on social media right now, they're very optimistic.
Mhm.
They're obviously looking forward to that. I don't know about everybody else, but I do know a lot of people who have confessed to me that the last 4 years, as far as the economy goes, have been very difficult for them. I have hired some people that could not make it work any longer with one job. They started working for me part-time on top of their full-time job because they couldn't make it anymore. The gas was too high, groceries was too high, and I don't know. Bread should never be more than $1.89. I don't care what kind of bread it is. Buck
Mhm.
89 is what I need to pay for. So so I do think that there's some optimism, and I think there are reasons for hope. But I am very careful not to put my stock in any political party or any politician because they're human and they're flawed. And some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. So I try to stay focused on that. And it's not always easy because I'm human too,
Mhm.
right? But I'd like to think that there's some reason for hope for small businesses. There seemed to be between 2016 and 2020. There was definitely hope. I know our businesses were more fiscally sound in between 2016 and 2020. Whether or not they will be again, you know, let's hope so. Let's hope so. A lot of happy red state people right now.
Mhm.
So, and let's hope that their faith is placed well where it's placed. I'm ultra conservative. I don't make any bones about that. I'm obnoxiously conservative. I mean, I'll just be honest with you. But I don't put my trust in men. You just can't. I mean, it's like always trusting your tire not to go flat. I mean, come on. Sometimes it's going to go flat. It's a tire.
So you choose the bear then?
I think so. I'm going to be cautious. I'm going to be very cautious about what I say. It's a podcast.
That's okay. It's a little joke there. I don't know if you've seen the memes. I take it then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I have. That's
That's
funny.
okay. There's no ill will for anything. Everybody's allowed to believe what they wish to believe. And as long as, everybody's copacetic, everybody's copacetic.
Well, and I think that the big thing that for me, and this has always been a big thing, and I actually did a Facebook Live in 2016 after the election. We just don't respect anybody anymore. We're a nation of people that has no respect for other people. And we don't believe anybody who tells us that they do respect us. So even if you tell me you love and respect me, I'm going to doubt it. And we've just developed this deep-seated disbelief in one another. No matter what you say, if you tell me long enough that they hate me, I'm going to believe that they hate me, even if I've never met them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to believe it because you've told me that long enough. And so we have a whole nation of just mistrust and distrust and disrespect. And man, I'd love to see that change. It wasn't like this in the 80s. I'm just telling you, I was there. And so we didn't, even though we had polarizing parties, we didn't have this kind of disrespect for your beliefs or the lack thereof. We just trusted that you were growing up in your way and I had grown up in my way, and we could still talk about it without all the hurt. But we've really lost that, and I don't know where we'll go if we don't start gaining that back. Got to pray about it.
Absolutely. I do hope it changes soon. I mean, I'm a 90s kid, so I thought the Clinton era was our golden age, right? But, you get a little bit older and you see all the things that he was messing up and,
Yeah. And again, human beings.
yep,
It just falls. We just suck. That's what I tell
yep.
people. Humans just suck. That's what it is. So
So when it comes to, expanding your skill set and keeping the mind fresh and things like that, what are some of the top books that you've read or are currently reading that uh, help other people out?
my, this is tough. I love Max Lucado, his books. I do. Also, Anything from Zig Ziglar, his old stuff is still just rings true today about what you're capable of, and your own belief in yourself. You're equipped, and that's something that I think is just a message that's really strong. Really needs to be stronger. That you're equipped to do whatever it is that you're stepping out to do, because I homeschooled my kids for 25 years. And one of the things that the people would say, oh, but what if you don't teach them enough this or enough that? And they've got these gaps in their education. Well, first of all, I don't think gaps are real, because I think that as long as you are spurring them to be curious, they're going to fill the gaps themselves. My kids, it was always about trying to light a fire and not just fill a bucket with them. So, but one of the things that I taught them was, if you don't have the answers, have the boldness and the courage to go look for the answers. If you feel like you're not getting the whole story, go look for the whole story. And I think that when it comes to having the right tools and having the right mindset and all of that, I think that just comes down to seeking. You just have to keep seeking, but you have the brain to do whatever. You just have to seek what you need to do it. So, like, I could read a book about rock climbing, and believe me, that's not ever going to happen. But if I were to read a book about rock climbing, there'd be tools I would need. Even if I thought deep down I could do it, if I don't have the tools, I'm not going to climb the rock. I mean, unless I levitate or something. So I think that when it comes to all the books that are out there and stuff, you have to know what you're short in. So, like I said, I was really short with the whole planning thing. I didn't understand why I had to follow a planner, fly by the seat of my pants all the time.
Mhm.
It wasn't until somebody told me one day, just follow one day and see how that produces in your life, in your day. And that was life altering for me. It was somebody saying, just do it one day and let's see what happens. And so then I was like, listening to everything he told me, because obviously he knew what my shortcoming was and he had a way to address the shortcoming. So I have a tendency to read books. I have a tendency to read books on faith that are kind of unrelated to my business, because everything about my business has come from my faith. So if that makes any sense,
Now it does.
I do read a lot of books on the cries of Ravi Zacharias' Cries of the Heart. I'm reading that. I read there. If you'd asked me this sooner, I had all this stuff written down. I got a bookshelf sitting right there, and I can't see any of the titles. It's sitting right there. But there's some goofy. I want to say goofy. That probably doesn't sound very respectful. There's some books out there that the titles are very enticing. The Who Moved My Cheese and some of that stuff. And it's not that I don't think any of that stuff is valuable, but I have a tendency to stay in faith-based reading because my business is born out of my faith. So that's where I get my encouragement, is in my faith. And that seems to address everything. That seems kind of like not a really good answer, because I didn't give you a very good answer as far as titles go. But the truth of the matter is, that's me. That is definitely me, and how I've tried to filter all of the work that I do for my business through my faith and my walk with God. So I was okay. So when you say which book do I really recommend? The Bible. I just
There you
recommend
go.
the Bible. Everything you need to know and more. I do have a friend who wrote a great book. His name's Glenn Henderson. He wrote a book called Everything I Needed to Know I Learned from Star Trek. It's pretty good.
I'll probably have to look that one up because
You'll have to look that one up.
I'm
I'm
a
a
Star Trek
Trekker.
Trek
Yep.
fan.
Yep.
Next
I'm a Trekker.
Generation. That's the one that I grew up
Well,
with.
that's the 90s,
Of
right?
course, yeah.
So
Captain Picard.
you know what? I was 5 years old and fell madly in love with Leonard Nimoy, and I followed his Star Trek days his whole life. The first book I bought on Audible was the book read by William Shatner called Leonard, about Leonard Nimoy, and I just had such great respect for that character and how well he did it. And then, of course, I got older and I started to watch old reruns of Gunsmoke. Do you remember Gunsmoke? Did you ever see
Mm,
Gunsmoke? Old black and white Western?
probably not. No.
Streaming on Max. I think it's streaming on Max.
Okay.
But if you go, Leonard Nimoy plays one of the bad guys. He's one of these old Western cowboy bad guys. It's hysterical to me now because for all my life he was Spock, right? So, but yeah, no, I'm as far as books go, yeah, it's all about devotion to me right now. So,
Sure. Anything from Ziegler's great. I know he has a lot of motivational deal. And I don't, did he have a kind of a Christian faith spin to a lot of his stuff? Or am I,
yes,
okay, I thought
yeah.
so.
So when I was working in radio years and years ago in a very, very small AM radio station that was gospel, he actually had like a Ziegler minute kind of thing where he put out these motivational talks for just a minute or two. And yeah, they're always faith based. They're always faith based. But you know, some of the stuff that's still good is stuff that was out in the late 50s, early 60s. The Dale Carnegie stuff,
Mhm.
still right on target. Still right on target.
When it comes to those types of self-development books, there's really nothing new invented under the
That's
sun.
exactly right.
And if you go back far enough, you'll be able to see that they just copied stuff that has been done even in the 18s.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, all of what's his name, Napoleon Hill stuff that was taken,
Yeah.
you know, from the 1800s, and he just revamped it.
Yeah. And I noticed a lot of people just refurbishing Jim Rohn's book on networking. He's so that a lot of that's just kind of redone. And it's like we said it in different words, but we're doing the exact
Yep.
same stuff.
Yep.
So,
So there's
yeah.
really nothing new under the sun. Even if you go back to the Bible, a lot of those principles are in there, and a lot of them are taken directly out of there. And if you know, or just
Right.
look at the word Bible itself, it's, you
Well,
know,
and
basic
the
instructions for life ever after.
yeah, the concepts that I keep in front of me all the time are to love God and love people. If you do that with your business, I don't care what the business is. If you show that you love God and you love people, you'll be okay. Because if that's I mean, who ruins that mission? If that's the mission and that's what you're doing is loving God and loving people, you can be used with your business. And that, I mean, like I've told people lots and lots of money's great. I love money. I've had money. Um, but impact is better. And that's really what the goal is. When I die, I don't think people will look at my bank statement,
Nope.
but they might take a look at my podcasts or the works that I've written and or tell a story about how they made a lasting impact, and that would be far greater.
For sure. Definitely can't take it with you at all. So what
And
is
in my case, I'm such a big girl, there ain't gonna be no room in that coffin. So let's just be saying, I'm just saying.
so what's one lasting piece of advice that you could give here for that one person that's listening to this is right on the cusp
Mm,
of greatness, but just can't seem to push that rock over the hill?
one piece. The only way to fail is to stop trying. It really is. And it's been everything in my life I can think of. When I was in my mid 20s, I was a singer and I mean, the voice has made money, right? So I was in the process of recording a Christian album. I was about 26 years old, 28 years old. And right in the middle of that, I lost my voice. And here I was on the radio, so I couldn't talk. I was like Kathleen Turner eating tacks on the radio every day. And my station manager, God love him, was so sweet. He was like, "That's okay. It'll get better and you'll be fine. And you just go ahead and keep talking." Well, it was not good. It was really not good. And so I just kept doing the radio but I was in the middle of recording this album, and of course the studio couldn't wait. They just went on and started recording with somebody else. And I was kind of upset. I was mad. I was mad at God for allowing my dream of recording to not come to pass. I didn't understand after knowing me and my love for singing. Because listen, when they introduced me to other people at church, it was, "This is our singer." I mean, that's who I became. My my persona was all about the music. And worse than that, my relationship with God was all about what I could do for him in song. And so when I lost my voice, it took several weeks for me to just even be able to go to church and not cry during praise and worship time because I couldn't sing. And so, excuse me. So finally, one day, after several months of this, I wasn't sick, didn't have strep, you know. I took a long, long walk and just yelled at God. I lived in Wichita at the time. and there was a river walk, and it would just walk right down the Arkansas River, because we say Arkansas, and we say Arkansas about the river, but we say Arkansas about the state. So I say Arkansas just so people know. We do know it's pronounced Arkansas. And so I was walking down the river walk and yelling at God. I think people across the river thought I was crazy because I just was belting it out. Why? Why can't I sing? Why have you done this? What's going on? I don't. It was pathetic and so needy. And finally, in his very subtle way, I felt him say to me, "So if you never sing again, can you love me anyway?" And I had had that conversation with him before when we were going through infertility treatments and I was not conceiving. If you don't get what you want, can you love me anyway? And I had to say to him, I don't know. I mean, I'm just being real. I had to say, I don't know. I'm kind of mad. And he said it was okay to be mad, but you got to keep going. You can't just stall here. You got to keep going. And I think that, and of course, then a few weeks later, somebody said, hey, I know a therapist that deals with people that have throat issues. And it turned out I had nodules on my vocal cords. And I treated them and I was singing again in 3 weeks. It was a simple fix. But I had to go down that trail. I had to go down that river walk and yell at God and have him say, character flaw, can you love me anyway? And I did. I just had, and when I got to the place where I could just say, okay, no voice, we're just pressing on. We're just going to keep going forward. There's an answer at the end of this tunnel, whether it's about the voice or about my heart or where my mind is. You got to keep going. And I think that breakthroughs never come before the hardship starts. The breakthrough never, or it wouldn't be called a breakthrough, right? So you have to go through that time of, I'm not making enough, or the business isn't doing what I wanted. I'm not getting enough of a following. I'm not meeting enough need, whatever it is. You have to get to that place where it's really dire sometimes. Otherwise, the breakthrough doesn't look like a breakthrough. It just looks like a comma in the middle of a sentence, right? We need a breakthrough. We want to break through. But you can't do it if you don't keep going. And so I would say that failure only happens when you quit. It doesn't happen when you just keep pressing forward. Even if you change the course a little bit, you're still pressing forward. So I guess that would be it.
It's awesome. And that's very true. I hear it all the time from my mentors and everything as well. So yes, you don't lose if you don't quit. So that's great.
That's right.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, I'm so glad.
I'm sure we can go probably another 2, maybe 3 hours. Maybe we'll pull up a part 2 a little bit later on down the road and we check in with each other for sure. If you've enjoyed this episode, definitely give Miss Lisa a follow. Where can they find you?
Okay, so my very favorite place is on my podcast. So you can find me at Chronicles of the Christian Drama Queen, and I am on almost all of those podcasting platforms. But you can also find me at christiandramaqueen.com. That's my website. And there's a blog there. There's a connection there to the podcast. You can have access to my books there. My Bible studies are there. And then there's a little freebie link that will give you access to free resources and to me through email. So you can contact me that way if you just want to have a free assessment call where we just discover, how it is that we can help one another, or maybe how you can walk through the process of finding a way to forgive. So Lisa at christiandramaqueen.com, christiandramaqueen.com is the website, and then Chronicles of the Christian Drama Queen podcast. And man, if you can't find me there, I'm on Facebook all over the place. Just look for Lisa Carrington, like the country star, Carrington Schaefer.
All that information will be in the show notes. So we'll put that down there to make it easy for everybody to find. So again, thank you once again for listening to the Business Growth Accelerator. Tune in next time as we continue to help you grow your business. And here's to your success.